Good morning and welcome. Thank you all for joining us this morning for the Catholic Business Network of Montgomery County's May breakfast event. My name is Jeff Goodell, and I have the pleasure of serving as the president of the CBN Montgomery County this year, and thrilled to join with our board in putting on various events, including this one, and we're thrilled with everybody's participation this morning. I'm going to quickly ask Father Mike, who is our spiritual advisor, to get us started this morning. He's fresh off a gala from last night, and wondering if he might be able to kick us off with an opening prayer.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm more than happy to do so this morning. And I'm sure, gentlemen, that we're all aware that this coming Sunday is Mother's Day. God forbid we should forget that, because you'll never live it down. So in this month of Mary, let us turn to her and ask her to bless us and all moms in a very special way. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Mary, as we anticipate the celebration of Mother's Day this coming Sunday, we turn to you. We thank the Lord whom you serve for the great gift of motherhood. Never has it been known that anyone who sought your intercession was left unaided by grace. Dear Mother, thank you for your yes to the invitation of the angel, which brought heaven to earth and changed human history. You opened yourself to God's word, and the word was made flesh and dwelt among us. Dear Mother, intercede for all our mothers. Ask your divine Son to give them the grace of surrendered love, so that they could join with you in giving their own fiat. May they find daily strength to say yes to the call to sacrificial love, the very heart of the vocation of motherhood. May their love and witness be a source of great inspiration for all of us called to follow your Son. Mother of the Word incarnate, pray for us who have recourse to you. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thanks, Father Mike. Appreciate that, and we will be sure not to forget Sunday is Mother's Day. Just quickly, as I think everybody on this call knows, the CBN Montgomery County is an organization of people who seek to live out the values of our faith in the marketplace. It's a premier networking organization, but also more importantly, a mission-based not-for-profit. And our goal continues to be giving back to the community by using nearly 100% of all the income and proceeds to fund need and merit-based scholarships, as well as direct grants to over 30 schools serving the Archdiocese of Washington. And as you know, since its inception, the CBN Montgomery County has provided over $1.5 million in scholarships and grants to needy students. So I hope that everyone will continue to support the organization. Those that are not a member, we'd love to have you join. Those that have been members in the past, we'd love to have you renew. And of course, all the information about the organization is at the on the website, cbnmc.org. My plug is done. My duty is fulfilled. A couple of quick logistical items. One, as always, we're recording the meeting. And two, we have the chat function available for folks to submit some questions for Ike. He's going to speak for a little while and then open it up for Q&A. So if folks want to send some questions in the chat, I'll do my best to facilitate asking those at the end. So before I have the pleasure of introducing our special guest, I did want to recognize a couple of folks who are on the line. As I mentioned, Ike brings out all the VIPs. So we're joined by two of our sitting Montgomery County Council members. First, Andrew Friedson, who represents District 1, which covers a number of areas that we're all familiar with. We've been thrilled to have Andrew on the council and appreciate his support on a number of issues that this group really care about. So Andrew, thanks for being here. And also another familiar face, at-large member of the Montgomery County Council, Gabe Albernas. Gabe, thank you for being here. I know you've been very active and involved in CBN Montgomery County for a number of years and always a huge supporter of our events. And I know you have a special connection to Ike, and so it's a pleasure to have you here this morning. But Gabe and Andrew, thank you for all that you're doing. I know you guys are fighting the good fight on a number of critical issues for the business community, as well as on the education front. And we're really thrilled to have you here. So thanks for joining us. And then with that, I do have the pleasure of introducing our guest speaker. Ike Leggett probably needs no introduction, but I will quickly remind everybody that Ike was the first African-American elected to the Montgomery County Council and Montgomery County Executive. And in 2016, he also served as the president of the Maryland Association of Counties and the president of the County Executives of America. He received his BA from Southern University. He's got a Master's of Arts and a JD from Howard University and a Master of Law from George Washington University. He was a captain in the U.S. Army, which included a tour of duty in Vietnam, and has been recognized on all fronts. One that I think sort of exemplifies his service to this community is that in 2015, he was named a Washingtonian of the Year for all of his tremendous work and service and his impact. And currently he serves as a member of the Board of Regents for the University System of Maryland. So even in quote unquote retirement, he continues to give of his time and his talents in service to the University System of Maryland. So with that, I will turn the floor over to Ike. Ike, thank you so much for being here this morning. Really pleased to have you here. I know folks are anxious to hear a little bit from you, and then I'm sure we'll have a robust Q&A. So with that, Mr. Leggett, the floor is yours. Ike, I think you're on mute.
Thank you, Jeff, and thanks for all of you being here this morning. I'm really delighted to be here. Let me also acknowledge and thank the two council members who are here. Andrew, who you just mentioned, is an outstanding council member, newly elected. I think he has one of the best business sense of all of those on the council, who balances just what this network is about. That is their faith and belief, and also the very astute testament to business. And of course, Gabe, who I know so well, and I'm just so proud of Gabe because he worked for me as a member of my administration, an outstanding council member, and I couldn't be prouder. And I think I also saw PJ on there. PJ continues to be such a dynamic force, serving with me on the board of advisors. He's University of Shady Grove, and a number of other things that he's done throughout the community as well. The Catholic Business Network of Montgomery County, when I look at that name and I see Catholic Business Network, in deference to a good friend of mine, someone you know of well, that is Father John Etzler. I'm sure that all of you in this network know him so well. Let me tell you a little bit of story about Father John. Father John overlapped with me with the Catholic charities of the area when I served as Montgomery County. And I could not have found a person more faithful, more energetic, more effective than Father John. And as it turned out, over the years, I realized that Montgomery County had contributed a great deal of monies to the many causes for which Father John would work on. And it was somewhat strange because after a couple of years, I would look at the budget and I would say to my special assistant, Chuck Short, we have to be very careful about the budget this year and how much money we're giving out. We are in the midst of a recession, and therefore there are some challenges that are out there. But every year, Father John would come by to see me. And Father John would come in, and he would sit down very humble, and he would say to me, Ike, I want to thank you for all that you've done for Catholic charities and the many examples that you've displayed of resources by the county. And he would talk about that for about 5 or 10 minutes. Then he would go into the next phase, and he would talk about how effective they've used the funds that I've given him over the years. And then the third phase, he would say, you know, I think we could go a little bit further. And for some reason, somehow, I would always say yes. The next year, I would say, well, Chuck, we just can't go quite that far anymore. We have to hold the line here. Father John would come in, Thank you for what we've already done. Talk about the programs that are existing. And somehow he would say, we need to just go a little bit further. And it took me 10 years to figure that out. And at the end of the time in my administration, we had given Catholic Charities somewhere over $20+ million. As I said before, worthy causes. But again, if you know Father John, you know how effective he has been in getting resources for the many causes. So my hat's off, deference to Father Mike, but Father John was a master at making certain that many of the causes throughout the community were really responded to by Montgomery County. Let me talk to you this morning about just a couple of things. First of all, if I said to you that a year and a half ago, that I developed a movie strip. And in that movie strip, I talked about, in America, an upcoming election that was not a typical election, unlike any that we've probably seen in our lifetime. And I wrote this script and I described the election, the aftermath of the election, all of the court challenges that transpired. Then I talked about what happened on January the 6th, seeing rebel flags being paraded through the Capitol, the insurrection that occurred inside and outside the Capitol, how many elected officials were cowering in their seats, fearful of being captured or being shot, and all that transpired as a result of that. And I provided that in a movie strip. And I went to Hollywood and I said to them, you know, I want to make a movie about this. And I'd done that a year and a half ago. Hollywood probably would have rejected what I've written. Yet and still, everything that I've described has occurred in the United States of America. And it's not a movie, it's not a script, it is something that actually transpired. I say that because sometimes we stand back and we look at what has transpired in the last year or so. We are simply amazed at how far we have drifted from the very tenets of democracy. And there are four things, in my opinion, that really, I think, stand out for me and stand out for whether or not you're the state, local, or internationally. There are four themes that I see that continue to reverberate in our society. First are the great divisions that exist, whether now racial, ethnic lines, social, political. Second, the challenges that our health system and health disparities have brought out over the last few years, captured at the top of that with COVID-19. Thirdly, the economic inequality that we see not only here in the United States, but literally around the world. And fourthly, the environmental challenges that we face. If we look at all four of those things, we can argue about whether or not there could be other things listed in there, but I think that those four probably capture the more difficult challenges that we would face. Divisions that exist, economic inequality, the challenges of health disparities, and of course, the challenge to the environment, global warming, and other things that comes under that great cap. Now, there's something that runs essentially through all of those, and that is the place that race plays in this country and around the world. A common theme that you can find through all four of what I've just described. And I want to come back to that in just a moment. But I also want to go back to something that you are doing that I think is highly important. That is the resources that you are providing to help young people, both on need and merit, and the money that you provide for over 30 schools. You probably do not know it, but in many ways, you are touching the lives of so many young people And the good thing about this, they're young people that in many ways you would probably never see. They would not all the time have an opportunity to thank you, but you are touching the lives of so many people. My wife and I are fortunate to have good education. We started from humble backgrounds. And in that vein, we try to provide resources for students to give back in a way, especially at the University of Maryland, Shady Grove and in Montgomery College. And I say that because I want to explain to you just a little bit about my background and why education plays such an important role and the role that you are playing as a Catholic Business Network in providing scholarships. As Gabe and so many others know, I didn't start off as a person who was destined to be county executive here in Montgomery County and so many other things that Jeff alluded to. But I was born and raised in the South and raised literally in Louisiana, one of 12, 13 kids. And I had very few options about college and did not believe that I could ever get into a college. And I was coached into going to college by my mother and my high school football coach, who thought that I had an opportunity to be successful. But we did not have the resources and monies to allow me to go to college. And so what happened, my little church, after sort of begging my way into a summer program at Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, I was rejected 4 times. And I got in because I was willing to take a summer job of working with the outside maintenance crew and cutting the grass around the university campus. So I was basically a lawn boy and picking up the trash around the university campus. My church, which is back in Alexandria, Louisiana, decided to provide resources for scholarships. And they raised monies all summer in order to achieve some level of support for scholarships. And my church was very poor. At the end of the summer, this was 1967, they had raised more money for any particular cause such as this in the history of the church. It was a grand total of $37. And I repeat that number, $37. The $37 had to be divided among 3 students. So I essentially got as a scholarship for my church, $12. Realizing that that was insufficient, and the school that I was attending was in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, the state capital. And as PJ and others know, here in Maryland, you have an opportunity to receive scholarships or grants from elected officials. So I went to the elected official from my parish, a senator by the name of Cecil R. Blair. And I asked Senator Blair for the parish for a scholarship, one of his scholarships. He looked at me incredulous and said, I don't think that I've ever given a scholarship to anyone who attends that school. What he meant about that school was essentially Southern University, an African-American Black college in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. After pleading with him, explaining to him that my family had worked on his farm, that I really needed the money, that I couldn't see my way through it, he rejectedly said no, and I left. Well, about 3 weeks later, I received a message from the business office informing me that Senator Blair had given me a scholarship. And I think that scholarship was sort of given dejectedly, saying, well, this kid is a bother. He'll probably never amount to very much, but rather than to see his face again, I'm just going to give him a scholarship to be done with it. As I said before, my church had given me a scholarship, $12. Those 2 scholarships have been part of the motivation for my life. The scholarship, the $12 given by my church, was given out of love, out of support, with the expectation that they believed that I could make a successful path in life. $12, the most that they could afford. On the other hand, Senator Blair had given me a scholarship basically saying, get out of my face, kid. I never want to see you again. Here, take it and be done with it. And so part of my motivation And many of the things that Jeff has just described about my education, my background, and all of the other so-called successes, in many ways have been motivated by those two scholarships. This scholarship given out of love, $12, for people who believed in me, and I always wanted to respect that and to live up to that and to say thank you to those people. The scholarship given by Senator Blair, I wanted to demonstrate to him and for others in the General Assembly that you can invest in young Black kids just as myself, and they can be successful. Those two things drove me and allowed me the opportunity to be successful. So I say to you, what you are doing in your businesses, what you're doing to help young people, both on merit and in need, there are people such as Ike Leggett and many others out there that you will be proud of. You may not ever hear of them. You may not ever see them, but you are touching and helping to transform lives. So I want to thank you. And this is why I am so much indebted and so much involved in the educational aspects of our community. As I said before, providing scholarships and support at every level my wife and I can do so. I want to thank you for what you're doing and thank you for the contributions that you're making, not only there, but in so many other places. It is needed so much because what I've just described to you, the 4 challenges that I listed, those 4 challenges are impacted by how we impact the future. I'm a very optimistic person. I believe in the betterment of all people. I believe that tomorrow is going to be better than today, despite all the challenges that we see. But one of the things that I know is that unless we are able to better educate our community, unless we are able to make sure that most people have a more optimistic view about our country, I believe in American exceptionalism. I believe that this is the best country in the world, despite all the challenges that we see. I believe that we can be better, but it starts with my faith, it starts with my value about education, and it ends with hard work. And I want to commend you because the challenge that I've just described in many ways reflect all of that. We can't deal with the divisions within our society unless there's some faithful, hopeful aspects to that. We can't deal with the challenges of racial inequality in so many other areas unless there's a hopeful vision about that. We can't deal with the challenges in our health system unless we believe that all people should be included and we want to vaccinate as many as we can and provide the health that they need. We can't deal with our environment unless we see the injustices that exist in so many areas around our lives. All of those things are important for us as a community. And so with that exceptionalism, because here's something that I want you to keep in mind, and I'm going to reflect upon the hill that we climb. That is the poem given by Amanda Gorman at the inauguration, because there's something that's in there that has caught my eye and has been with me for a period of time. And this is what she said. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than to share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. I'm going to repeat this. This is coming from a 22, 23-year-old poet. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than to share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. Given the challenges that I've just described, given where we stand today, and given what I believe this poem reflects about our society, that's not a very hopeful vision. That's not very hopeful. But this is accurate. There are people who would shatter our nation rather than to share it, would destroy democracy. That's real. I couldn't have written a movie about that in a script to say to Hollywood, as I described earlier, here is a version that America is seeing today that I want to produce in a film. We've been rejected. But yet, here's where we stand today. But there's also something else that she stated in her poem that I think is also fitting. And she says this, in addressing the mighty challenges of our country. And she says, and so we lift our glazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. What stands before us are the challenges that we've just faced. But we should look beyond that and through that, because our nation is better than what we've seen. And so if anything else that I could say to you this morning is that the way that we move forward is that we're going to have to, in some ways, look beyond these challenges. We're going to have to be a little bit more hopeful. We're going to have to be a little bit more faithful, and we have to be a little bit more understanding. Now, the challenge with this is that the people who are on this line, and who am I talking to today, much of this will probably not impact your life that much. The people that it will impact will be your children, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren. The challenge that we see will only get worse unless we look to say, we're going to look beyond this because I want a future better for our children and our grandchildren. You are more successful today, and therefore we can avoid many of the challenges that I've just described easily. But what of the world if we're going to bring our children and grandchildren into this, and they're looking at the same kinds of racial division that I've talked about, looking at the health disparities that I've talked about, looking at the economic challenges that I've talked about, and living in an environment that is not conducive for their health. So what I want to say to you today, that despite what you've done in terms of helping support for young people, let's take on this challenge that this young lady has described. Let's look for a hopeful future and roll up our arms and say, wherever I am, whatever I'm doing, whatever networks that I'm in, whatever component of society that I'm in, I'm going to try to bring another person around, someone that does not look like me, someone that I do not engage with regularly, to say, how can I be helpful? I'm going to start, if it's no more than just me, to be hopeful, to put aside these divisions that exist within our society, to be more positive about what we're going to do in the future. And hopefully, our children and our grandchildren will not have to endure some of the challenges that we are facing today. Otherwise, we have a very bleak future. And I am a hopeful person. And I hope that you are as well. That's a simple message. Sometimes we make this too complicated. And sometimes we try to come up with all kinds of scenarios of all the fancy and difficult things that we could do. But let's start with the simple things. Let's start with trying to be hopeful. Let's try to be a little bit more faithful. Let's try to be a little bit helpful to people. Let's try to make a difference if it's just one person. That's the message that we should send out here, that we have a great country. We have a great county. We have a great future ahead of us. America is an exceptional place to live. When you compare it to almost anywhere on this earth, you will find the exceptionalism that exists here. As a young, very poor person growing up in abject poverty in Louisiana, I'd never before going to college had ever been beyond 50 miles of my little hometown. 50 miles beyond my hometown. Now, as an adult, I've probably been around the world 8 to 10 times. And I've seen the world from one end to the other. I've experienced a great deal across this entire spectrum. You cannot find a better country, a more perfect in many ways, moving toward perfection than the United States of America. But we have to work to avoid what I've just described. This country relies upon us sharing democracy, not shattering. It relies on being hopeful, not negative. I hope that you would join me in that simple, straightforward message to let's change the attitude, let's change the conditions that we see by starting with ourselves and working out one person at a time. With that, Jeff, I would stop. And if there are any questions or comments people may want to make, I'll be glad to do so.
Well, let me first say thank you for one, acknowledging the good work of the CBM Montgomery County, but more importantly, I think I speak for everybody in thanking you for those comments and you sharing that story and you challenging all of us to look at things in a different way and a simpler way but one that can have tremendous impact. And I know that we all appreciate that. I know that it was not only inspiring but impactful for me to listen to you sort of walk through and describe that. And I know we're all very appreciative of those comments, and hopefully we can all join you in trying to make that a reality. But
Thank you.
we appreciate you for many different reasons. We certainly appreciate the service that you've given to the county. And it's not hard to understand why your message resonates with so many different people and has for so long. So we appreciate everything that you've done, and thank you for those comments. I'm going to open it up for some questions. Before I do, I failed to recognize one other special guest we've got here this morning, and that's our friend David Blair, who's been on the line. David has joined us at other CBN events, was a guest speaker, I believe, last year, and of course is now running for Montgomery County Executive. And I know that he was anxious to be part of this and certainly wanted to hear Ike and get reconnected with a number of folks here. So David, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Jeff. It's good to see everyone again.
So I will open it up for questions. I mean, there's obviously a lot that Ike covered. I know obviously there's a number of small businesses and others here in Montgomery County that may have some thoughts or questions for Ike related to the county, as well as more general issues. But anybody want to jump in with a question? Wow, was everybody at the Don Bosco Gala last night? This is not normally a shy crowd. Ike, why don't I don't want to, the message that you just provided was so powerful. I feel sort of bad shifting gears at all, but I would love, and I think a number of us would love to get a sense from you what you see as sort of the climate and environment in the county from a business standpoint, but just from a general standpoint. You talked about a lot of these challenges we're having as a country, but how do you think those manifest itself in the county in terms of the climate and the environment that we're all sort of working and living and our kids are attending school in?
Well, I think, first of all, I think comparatively Montgomery County as a county is probably in a better position than most, but that is not saying that we are at the place that we should be. We continue to lag sufficiently behind, significantly behind in business growth, jobs, and many of the other things that I think from a business standpoint of view that we can improve on. I say that because I know of the challenges we face. We've done okay with some of the reliance upon the federal government. We had to expand our tax base because it's growing. I'm also concerned about the disparities that we see. If you look at job growth to the extent that it is growing, we are gaining more people at the bottom end of the economic scale, which I think is acceptable to some degree. But numbers that I've seen in the past that we may be losing some at the top and at the middle. And if that trend continues and that sort of unbalanced approach, it could negatively impact the tax base. Let me give you a number or two that I remember some years ago. We had a significant tax rewrite a few years ago of about $60 million. And we were off the projection from that. And at a time when the economy had started to gain a little bit. But what had happened, it was after the tax cuts had been announced by then President Trump, that we saw a significant downcline. And what happened was that a number of high-end taxpayers, in anticipation of the new tax changes at the federal level, had decided to hold off on a lot of would have normally been capital gains resources that they would have achieved and did not do so. And as a result of that, that had a significant downturn on our local taxes to the tune of about $60 million. Now you would say, whoa, that's a large number of people that have decided to hold off on some capital gains. Well, it really wasn't. It was just a handful of people. And what it brought to mind to us is that we have probably a handful of families, less than probably 5% or so that at the high end, that are paid a great deal into our local income taxes in Montgomery County. And any kind of significant shift at that high end of those families has a ripple effect throughout our entire local economy in Montgomery County and our tax base, which means to me that you cannot, you can ill afford to lose people for whatever reason at the top who can have a huge impact on the entire tax base. And so that's something that is a great deal of concern to me, the potential loss of people relocating at the high end of our economic chain, even though the population is slightly growing, but I'm concerned about the distribution of demographics throughout the entire phase of that. Those are some of the challenges that exist. Now, as it relates to individual challenges that I think flex me and bother me here or there, let me give you a little story that happened. As I was county executive for 12 years, you get some level of security that will drive you around and provide you with the ability to go one place to the other. And toward the end of that 12-year journey, my wife asked me a question. As I was about to leave, she said, is there anything about the office that you're going to miss once you leave as county executive? I said, no, sweetheart, I am ready to go. I do not see anything about the job that I'm going to miss. So about a week before I was to leave, I decided to go out and buy a car, a van, similar to the van that the county had driven me in around the county for the last 12 years. And I was driving one day, I had to go down to Rockville Pike to go to a little strip shop mall. And I was driving around, I couldn't find a place to park. I drove around 10, 15 minutes, I got frustrated. I decided to go back home. And I said to her, sweetheart, there is one thing that I'm going to miss. I said, I'm going to miss having to park my car. I said, I couldn't find a parking space. I said, who is responsible for that?
Always comes down to the most local.
Yeah, parking your car, find a parking place, and realizing all the pain that so many in the county are challenged with the traffic is a real concern, down to the ground level.
Jeff?
Yes, Senator,
If I
I'll
may.
let you go ahead, and then I've got a question in the chat room. So you go, and then we'll come
Thank
back
you.
to Annabelle.
I don't want to miss this opportunity to thank Ike for his comments and his inspirational message. And, you know, much of it was kind of centered around education. And I want to point out that if it wasn't for Ike Leggett as Councilman Leggett, County Executive Leggett, and I don't know what you call it today, retirement Leggett.
Regent Leggett to you.
And Regent Leggett, there wouldn't be the higher education opportunities and excellence in Montgomery County that there is. Montgomery College is one of the, if not the best community college in the nation. And I don't say that with bias. I say because it's true. And then, people complain about the cost of higher education, and Ike talked about how important his ability to get an education was to his life. There are inexpensive ways to get a degree that often I find parents just don't, students, look, an 18-year-old doesn't know, but parents should know better. And right in Montgomery County, there's a way to get a quality, whether it's an AA degree from Montgomery College or go on from Montgomery College to universities at Shady Grove and get a bachelor's degree and even a master's degree program right in our own county. And that would not exist without Ike's vision, leadership, and support in all of those roles as councilman, as executive, as regent, and as retired statesman of Montgomery County. I want to thank Ike for everything he's done to make that a possibility.
Thank you, PJ. Thank you.
So we've got time for probably one more question or so. Anybody want to jump in?
Mine will be a quick one. It's how did you get away with only 20 million to Monsignor Ensler?
That's a pretty good question to comment. I was trying to fight it, but as I said before, he's such a faithful person. He's so good at what he does, so effective that you're right. 20 million is probably the low bar of it. So, he also had another advantage with me. Chuck Short was my special assistant. So between Chuck Short and Father John, I didn't have a chance, I think.
All right, last question, Ellen Jane.
Yeah, Mr. Leggett, I'm sure you've seen the Montgomery County Planning Commission Thrive 50, the plan. Have you seen that? Are you aware of it?
Yeah, I'm looking.
I'm not deeply familiar with it, but in the overview, it seems to me that it is not addressing the systemic problems that we have. It's taking good old planning principles, which we can't argue with, but they've brought us to these disparities in this county and nationwide, and it should be taking a different approach from the top. Any thoughts on that?
Well, it's going to take a little bit more creativity, in my opinion, to get us where we need to be. There are some disparities that exist at every level. I talked about a little bit of those. One of which I think happens as it relates to the challenge of age in Montgomery County. People do not realize, for example, that Montgomery County has one of the largest age community in the entire region. And therefore, what we do for our seniors, what we do for people who want to remain in Montgomery County is a good place in which we need to start, because so many have contributed to what we have today. And without them, without their support, without the taxes they paid over the years, without the jobs, without the employment base, we would not be where we are. And so I have not gone through all aspects of the plan, but I do agree with you principally that it needs to start with more engagement with all segments of our community and to try to be a little bit more creative in terms of how we solve some of these things, because the way we've done it in the past is not going to be the way we'll get out of this for the future, because Montgomery County has changed and will continue to change and evolve over the years, and we need to be more respectful. You start with that by going out and first listening to people before you develop what I call the blueprints of the plan. The blueprints of the plan first starts with understanding what we have in the community, talking to people, being more forcefully engaged with them in order to have a better sense of that. Thank you for your question.
Thank you. And again, on behalf of all of us, thank you for being here this morning. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your continued service to the county. We appreciate you in so many different ways, but certainly.
Well, let me thank you, Jeff, for your contribution and serving as a Board of Regent member, and I'm delighted to serve with you. Let me again acknowledge and thank all the people who are on the line today. I again want to leave you with a hopeful message. In my life and what has happened for me and my family and so many other people in this country, I think hopefully serves as a model and an example of what the best of America could be. And I'm a firm believer in faith, in hard work, and in education. And if we continue those principles and continue to work to try to see the best of people, then I think that we have a chance to make certain that our democracy in our country lives up to what it should be. Thank you, and God bless you all. And remember, as Father Mike said, remember your mothers on Mother's Day.
Thanks, Ike. And speaking of Father Mike, congratulations again on a successful gala for Don Bosco last night. Thanks to Gabe and Andrew for being with us. Thanks to David Blair for being with us this morning. Certainly a Mother's Day wish for all the moms out there to have a wonderful and blessed Sunday. I would also open it up if we've got any guests or folks that have any needs or leads before we break. Happy to open it up to anybody.
Hi, everyone. I'm Annabelle. I'm also on the board with Jeff, and I just want you all to mark your calendars for the 20th. We're going to do a CBN speed networking event, and we want, please tell all the professionals and business folks, in the area about it. We'd love to get a lot of people together, and it's going to be fun.
Others? All right. Well, again, thanks everybody for being here this morning. Appreciate everybody's participation. Hope everybody has a wonderful weekend, a great Mother's Day. And again, Gabe and David and Andrew, thanks for being here. I should probably thank Senator Hogan too. And everybody else, hope you have a great weekend. Appreciate the support of CBN. And we'll be back together on June 11th for our next breakfast event. And then we'll send you some information about the event Annabelle highlighted. So thanks. Enjoy the weekend. We'll talk to you soon.